Well, the most surprising thing about the New Hampshire primary is that there was nothing surprising about it. Let's go back to our projections before New Hampshire weighed in.
Who do you think the winners are, in what order?
Bernie Sanders will finish first with around 26% of the vote. And Sanders finished first with 26% of the vote. Pete Buttigieg will be in second place with around 23% of the vote. And Buttigieg finished second with 24% of the vote. Amy Klobuchar in third place with around 16% of the vote. And Amy Klobuchar finished third at 20%, slightly higher than our 16% projection, while Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden floundered, as we projected, in weak fourth and fifth places, respectively. The irony here is that the predictable results in New Hampshire now set up a muddled five-way Democratic race that is now much harder to predict.
This victory here is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
Well, Bernie Sanders is now the front runner, but he's a very weak front runner. Keep in mind, he threw everything that he had in New Hampshire, and he's a neighboring state senator, and he had a built-in machine from his 2016 race when he routed Hillary Clinton with 60% of the vote. And this time around, though, he won by the skin of his teeth with only 26% of the vote. And now the race is heading south, where Sanders has struggled to win over African-American voters. And the Democratic electorate also appears to be more moderate than Sanders or President Trump would have you believe. The progressive lane split between Sanders and Warren, for example, got 35% in New Hampshire, but the center-left, more moderate lane split between Buttigieg, Klobuchar, and Biden got 53%.
We have an unprecedented grassroots movement from coast to coast of millions of people.
For Sanders to win the nomination, then, he likely needs Warren to quickly drop out of the race so he can unite the left wing of the party. And meanwhile, he's hoping Bloomberg, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, and Biden will keep going to splinter the moderate and African-American base in the coming states. And that, of course, brings us to the former frontrunner.
It ain't over, man. We're just getting started.
For former Vice President Joe Biden to win, he frankly needs a miracle at this point, but he does still have a path if he wins big in South Carolina and then uses that as a slingshot into Super Tuesday. Steyer and Bloomberg are cutting into Biden's support, making that very difficult, of course, especially with the rise of Pete Buttigieg.
And thanks to you, a campaign that some said shouldn't be here at all has shown that we are here to stay.
For Buttigieg to win, he needs Biden to crash in South Carolina and Klobuchar to fade in the Super Tuesday states, and he needs something to trip up Mike Bloomberg.
And I think that I'm the one that can beat Donald Trump. That's why he tweets against me.
For Bloomberg to win, he has to fare well, of course, in his first presidential debate and work through the crisis that comes with his stop and frisk police policy that he now deeply regrets.
No, no, no.
Former President Obama survived the Jeremiah Wright crisis, and former President Clinton survived the Jennifer Flowers crisis. The jury, meanwhile, is still out on Bloomberg's crisis. Voters largely judge candidates by how they handle these types of problems and crises, and Bloomberg is being tested as we speak.
Those words don't reflect the way that I've governed or the way that I run my company or the way that I live.
That leaves one other interesting wild card in the race.
Because of you, we are taking this campaign to Nevada.
As a former prosecutor turned senator, Amy Klobuchar will face the same kinds of challenges that dogged Kamala Harris. And right or wrong, she has a reputation for being unpleasant or difficult to work for. But politics is all about timing, and Amy Klobuchar surged at just the right time. She won 75% of the late deciders in New Hampshire. And college-educated voters who tend to be more engaged in primaries are moving her direction. And the Super Tuesday states of Colorado, Virginia, and of course Minnesota could set up very nicely for her. And exit polling shows she's also drawing much of her support right now from voters who are looking for someone to unite the country. Sometimes the nominee does come out of nowhere, like Andrew Gillum in Florida and Jimmy Carter 44 years ago. Like Carter in 76, Amy Klobuchar is sort of the aw shucks character in the race, the self-described senator next door.
And we are taking this message of unity to the country.
And so goes a fascinating five-player race that will likely come down to what happens in the next 5 weeks, which then may all come down to the Florida primary on March 17th.